Just with one last question, and I appreciate your all the time here. You're all on board with the circuit breaker idea, and that's been a lot of the time on it. And Mr. Duffy, I think you just mentioned with what your system is as far as the 20%.
Our system on the circuit breaker, it's basically the way that it works today. It goes down roughly 0.5% of what the value of the S&P contract is today. If it doesn't have the liquidity to fill the number of contracts buy or sell, it will halt for 5 seconds, and then it will try to attract that liquidity. If it doesn't do it, it will try to halt another 5 seconds to attract that liquidity to fulfill the order in that period. Okay, and from the other gentleman, when you'll be meeting with Chairman Shapiro and the rest in the next few days and what have you to try to come up with uniformity on these issues, is there a lower level that you would say this was just not a realistic figure? So you were here at my opening comment, I said there were rumors out there saying that you're looking at bands of 2% or so that would just be too restrictive for individual stocks and what have you. So what is the appropriate level? That's my final question.
I think we're still engaged in that effort of determining the appropriate level.
Yeah.
I happen to share your concern that we not draw the bands too tightly.
And what is that?
Well, I think 2%, quite frankly, is too tight. I think what we saw on Thursday was the LRP functionality going off at 2% levels, which caused dislocations in the marketplace, perhaps unintentionally, but nonetheless caused dislocations in the marketplace while other markets continue to provide liquidity at that level. So I think, as Larry has suggested earlier, we need to agree on what the right appropriate levels are. I don't think 2% is the right level. We tend to believe that it should be 10%, but I think that's still a moving target for all of us.
Yeah, I would agree with Mr. Knoll 100%. I think we use for our LRPs relatively tight bands. In Procter & Gamble, it actually is about 2%. But the intention is to continue trading, and get it going relatively quickly. Right. I think for this, we're going to use broader bands because we want them to be market-wide, and we need everyone to agree to them. Congressman, if I just made one comment. Sure. The 10%, 20%, and 30%, which the gentlemen are referring to here, can be certainly narrowed. But I think if you narrow those percentages, what's more important then is to narrow the time frame that the market's closed, because they will be seeking liquidity at other venues, whether it's overseas or somewhere else. So if you narrow the time to 5, 15, and 10, whatever you want to come up with, pick your favorite number, you can't be closed for an hour or you can't be closed all day. You narrow those time windows and narrow the bands, and that will work out for everybody. Yeah, I think it's a great point. On a stock-by-stock basis, we're talking about a couple minutes at most. And on a market-wide basis, as we narrow the market-wide bands, we're really talking about moving the time frame in for the close, so it's not as long a close as it was in the past.
Yeah, it's a good point about overseas trades. I was going to bring that up before, but
that's exactly where it'll go, sir.
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. I want to thank each of you, Mr. Lebowitz, Mr. Knoll, Mr. Duffy, and also Chairman Shapiro and Chairman Gensler for your excellent, superb